Worship is surrender. Worship is a celebration. In worship, the song of the body is given full voice. It is our joyful but deeply rooted response to the victorious weapon of Jesus' resurrection. I can't stop moving. Our worship always points to life. Our worship is resistance. So for the past 2 weeks, I started my morning listening to that song, Big God, by Tim Godfrey and the Fearless Community. You hear that name? The Fearless Community. What a name, right? Well, singing along, watching and learning the now viral dance movements via YouTube puts me in a space of worship. Movement, you may have now guessed, is my spiritual language, and I've held tightly to my practice, particularly now when the pace of life feels way too unpredictable, when I'm holding tension and feeling stretched in ways that tell me my body, my soul needs an outlet. A sacred instruction for me is to move. Alice Walker is right. Hard times require furious dancing. It isn't always easy to make time for it, though, so I've begun counting even the smallest efforts. My 10-minute morning dance ritual with Tim Godfrey has been a life-saving practice. I turn the music on, and before I know it, my mood is lighter. Somewhere within that small window of time, I'm transported, reconnected with the God who speaks the language of flesh and blood and bone. This God appreciates and communicates to us with and through the body. God reminds me of a greater victory, of the good news, and that my worship can be my resistance. In our text today, we understand John's vision, and that's the Revelation reading that we just had, as one that reclaims worship as this political act. John sees the one who overcame death, who stands as if he were slaughtered, in the midst of those who understand this symbolism and respond to it with worship. He sees and hears as they break out in movement and song. Worthy, you are worthy. You were slaughtered, and by your blood you ransomed for God a people who would serve God. You were slaughtered, and now you live. To the Lamb be blessing and honor and glory. We don't appreciate the impact of this text on our regular everyday lives if we center it only in a supposed heaven. Left there, it loses its political and cultural impact, loses its power to shape and inform everything we do right now. Not in the by and by, in the future, in a world to come, but a world ruled by God right now. So let's rewind a bit. The throne, as described in chapter 4, challenges empire's claim of authority and rule of all. John's throne says, look past the Caesars of the world. That's the Caesars of any world. The throne is the alternative, the disruptive focal point. The throne points us to the creator and sustainer of life, God, and then to God's Son, Jesus, who in this text is given power and authority to name the as yet unrevealed word of God, undeciphered dream of God. So look, see beyond. Follow that trail. John's unveiling his revelation, remembering always that true seeing is a political act. And don't be surprised that it leads sometimes to the image of a lamb slain who stands as if he were slaughtered. Take that image and unfold it, flip it around, and look underneath it to discern the message, the secret. Our grounding in what's really real helps us interpret the image of a blood-soaked lamb. Understand that it is a message of victory. And worship expressed here as a bodily reverberation with loud sounds and songs is the appropriate response to the revealed fact of Jesus' lordship. Jesus is the good news. Our response is an expressed hunger for the sacred truth of holiness. Put simply, we desire to worship. The response to the good news is always worship. In worship, we resist the powers that oppose God and remember that God is not finished, that there are things that God wills that have yet to be accomplished, have not yet been manifested in the earthly realm. In worship, we express our hope. Worship helps us reframe our world beyond principalities, beyond institutions, beyond the unjust systems, beyond the noise of a political cycle. It is our resistance to them. In worship, we exercise our discipleship publicly. Our ability, our desire, and willingness to publicly worship centers our lives on God. And we are wholly impacted by the choice to worship, because you do have a choice. This isn't a passive resistance, no, nor the acceptance of undue suffering. And I want to drill down on that for a moment because I hear an interpretation like that as dangerous. Passive resistance, acceptance of undue suffering, that's dangerous. In my reading of Revelation, I draw from a Southern Black American background, which is decidedly influenced by African spirituality. And in this context, the power struggle between Satan and God has always been and continues to be real. With John, anyone who identifies or stands in solidarity with the disinherited knows what it is to cry, what it is to weep, to ask how long, to ask who can help us. They've expressed through tears a very real need for God. With John, we've learned to find our answers in unexpected places and to see beyond what's in front of us. This kind of seeing is critical for all of us. Each of us is being called to hear God's sacred instructions, to see beyond our seeing and to employ faith when we can't or don't understand. John's answer ignites both his hearing and seeing. He hears an elder tell him about the conquering Lion of Judah, which is in keeping with stories about Old Testament kings. It is in line with messianic expectations for a warrior, a righteous ruler who would overcome evil with good, would confirm his lordship over all. What John saw, however, was an image that brought and still brings to mind Jesus at the cross. What he saw was not simply a lamb slain, but a lamb standing as if it had been slaughtered. A lamb slaughtered, but still standing tall. I want to pause right here on that image because this image of weakness and strength, of humility and power, as if he was slaughtered but standing tall, what he saw was another expression, a symbolic image of the same promised victory. Its nuanced power tells us that resurrection was the weapon, that God's response to death on a cross is life, and that our subsequent response is worship. Our worship is a holy resistance. The one who would have authority to open the scroll appeared different than John imagined. But the hearers of this text would have understood and responded to the relationship called forth. Those relationships, those images that were called forth, that were triggered, the triggered connections, the hidden messages. They would have made the connection, and so should we. The Lamb with royal horns and spirit-empowered eyes was the one to be worshiped. All hail King Jesus. And so they did. But in worshiping this image, they were saying something more. They were saying no to the powers that be, no to the death-dealing empire and its institutions. In worshiping, they were saying yes to life. It is through worship that we overcome, resist, affirm God as ruler of all. Worship is the context, in this context, is the power that leads to life. The new songs of Revelation 4 and 5 assert universal consensus, a unanimous decision that Jesus is Lord. They express a Christian perspective of God's ultimate sovereignty. Worship empowers us to reposition ourselves in right relationship to God and all creation. As members of a blood-ransomed kingdom, God's holy creation, we can't help but worship. We can't help praising God. We worship God not simply in the sense of a never-ending worship service. No, we worship in acknowledgement of a God who rules here and now. Jesus is Lord of our public claim, and our worship of him is holy. It is our resistance to the evils of this right now world, everything you're going through right now. Worship is our faith-filled and disciplined sign of hope. And so God is not finished. There are things that God wills that have yet to be accomplished. I've said this before, that have not yet been manifested in the earthly realm. But in worship, we tell God and anyone around us that we believe, that we honor and understand the work of the in-between and intend to be the midwives to their birth. In worship, we practice presence and with reverence, with awareness, accept the invitation to immerse ourselves in the mystery of a God that is greater. We simply worship. Worship is risky. It takes courage. It is filled with the lifelong work of surrender and trust, but it's how we keep on keeping on. Worship is worth it. 5 years ago, Christine and I came to St. Peter's with roughly 20 other brave souls to be part of the plans God had for this community. We said then, and would probably say now, that we don't know what we're doing, that there is no grand plan. But we accepted the call, and day by day, moment by moment, are leaning and learning, praying over and sitting with words like health, Sabbath, discernment, becoming, and encounter. Phrases like, a church is a garden, not a factory. The ever-present, I don't know. I'm growing weary. I need to trust my voice. I do know. I just have to trust my knowing. And questions about how we can bring or offer our whole selves, our passions and joys to the work of ministry. Between the two of us, as you know, there's a whole praise ministry with music and dance and a whole bunch of other things. What are y'all going to do with us? We've held fast to the Spirit, listening and learning, staying curious, experimenting. With you, with all of you, we're creating a space of adventurous worship, a decidedly unique expression of an Episcopal church. And God's not done yet. But worship, our personal and joint practices, the how and why of our communal experience, the alignment of our hearts and minds with the move of the Spirit as we follow the way that is Jesus, in an ever-changing world, an ever-changing church, a world of war and famine, of disease and political unrest, of crumbling institutions, of declining faith, of so-called natural disasters brought on by climate change, the absence of hope, the nagging but growing sense of despair. Well, because of all that, worship is central. Worship is our resistance. Worship is the song of the body, even the corporate body. Worship is surrender and celebration. It is our joyful and deeply rooted response to the victorious weapon that is Jesus' resurrection. Our worship always points to life. Our worship is resistance. The deepest worship, the most authentic praise comes when we don't know the way, when we have to trust the God of our ancestors for what God has already done. employing faith to fill those gaps. That's what these 5 years have been about. That's what the revitalization effort has taught, is still teaching us. In worship, we add our individual and collective voices, our embodied presence as witnesses to the dream of God. So don't overthink it. With God, stay focused and surrender to the message of the good news. Let it be your medicine, your hope, your way of giving it all again and again to God. Let worship be your resistance. And so today, the invitation is to remember God in your body, to answer God with your whole self. So again, don't try to figure it out. Just enter in to what's here right now. Remembering that worship is your response to Jesus, who is Lord, to the God who is greater. I'm going to lead you in a space of worship for a little more than a minute. It's going to feel like a long time, though. So just be prepared. So stand if you're able. And if you are not able, this is absolutely something that can be done seated. So I'm going to teach you some steps, a little embodied prayer. And then we're going to play some music, and we're going to put the movements to the music, and we're going to dance. And so the first step is to bring your fists together. So fists, forearms. Do that with me again. Fists, forearms. Yes, yes, one more time. Fists, forearms. I see you, Martha. Good. So we got fist, forearms. So fist, forearms. We're going to do a spin. Spin, spin, throw. Let's do that again. Let's do the spin, spin, throw. Do it one more time. Spin, spin, throw. Good. After you get this, it's going to be so fun. Do it again. So from the top. Fist, forearm, spin, spin, throw. Do that again. Fist, forearm, spin, spin, throw. Good. We're going to move on. We're going to go here. This is so easy, like kind of big king God, right? Right? So we hold this posture, and you can kind of bump your chest if you want to. You can just kind of side to side, or you can just hold it. It's up to you. The next step is to the right. And if you did to the left, it's all good. And to the left, because you're going to do both. So make sure you do both. So you do to the right, to the left. And then back to this big God pose. So this is the big God pose. We come to this pose twice. Remember, you can sway here. You can pump your chest. You can just stand. If any of this feels like, you know what, Lisha, it's a little too much, just raise your hands, right? Just kind of enter that way. Maybe just lifting your arms. But I think you guys can do it. I saw most of you doing it. So we're going to do it one more time, and then I'm going to have Kevin play the music, and we're just going to play with it for a minute. It's a fun way of worship. I would say I'm a more contemplative girl, but my daughter Ela has gotten me listening to Afro beats, and I am jamming with it, as you can see. So here we go. We're going to go through it again 2 more times just without the music, and then Kevin will play it. So we got fist, forearms, spin, spin, throw. Arms. Side, side, arms. And so it's I have a very big God, ba, spin, spin, throw, up. A very big God. He's always on my right. He's always on my side. A very big God. Y'all are so beautiful. I mean, really, really, really. Let's do it one more time, and then Kevin, you're going to hit it for us. Here we go. And so it's, I have a very big God, ba, spin, spin, up, throw. A very big God. He's always on my right. He's always on my side. A very big God. That's it. And like I said, if you feel like I got lost in it, play with it for a while. Rodney watched me for 2 weeks trying to like, what was the step? What was the step? So there's a learning curve in there maybe, but if you fall, if you forget a step, Arms up. We'll do what we call a wave offering. Just wave. We just do the wave. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. Don't front, y'all know. Here we go. Okay, we're waiting for you, Kevin. We're just in the groove for a minute. Here we go.
Jump it up again. One more time. 1, 2, 3.
Bump, bump, spin. Up. Pump that chest. Right. And left.
Make it loud. Hands up. 1, 2.
Here we go. Blessings to you all. Amen. As you're able, take a seat. I want you to just come down from this moment a little. Just pause, give thanks, gratitude for this body and for the many ways God allows you to show up in it, to worship in it. You don't have to do this dance ever again. But I bet you if you hear it, you'll think about the movements. And find your own song. Find your little 3 minutes in the morning to move your body in worship. Amen? Just 30 seconds of silence.